What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Trojan the Barber, and today is another episode of Shop Talk. And I'm here with my client Jeremiah, and we're gonna just get for you guys to not only get to know myself a little bit better, but also get to know him and his story and his walk of life. And so we're gonna get started. All right, bro. What are we doing for you today, Jeremiah?
Same skin fade up to the top.
Skin fade up to the top?
Yeah.
Sweet.
If you want to leave a little, I don't know, the wife told me to just ask you, but I know last time he left a little bit extra up by the top, but whatever, it looks good.
Okay.
We're trying to keep the length, and then I don't think the beard needs much, if anything.
All right, yeah. Probably just clean it up a little bit for you, big guy.
Yeah, make sure the lines are straight or whatever.
Yep. Gotcha, bro. All right, Jeremiah. So, tell the people where you're from.
Born and raised, for the most part, right here in Tacoma, Washington. Spent a little time in Illinois, and I've been back here since 1999.
Oh, 99.
Yeah, that's when I came back. I think I was like 22-ish.
Yeah.
21.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've said so many times that I wish I would have never came back to Washington because I came right back to my addiction. But at the same time, with the way my life is today and some of the journeys I've been on, I'm glad I made the choice, you know?
Yeah. And so when you, how was life like growing up around here for you?
It wasn't real bad. Part of my story, you know, my dad died before I knew him. You know, in 1980, I was, not even 2 years old, so I never knew my real dad. My first stepfather was not the best person in the world.
Gotcha.
Mistreated my sister in, any way you could think. Mistreated me. And my mother married the man she's still with today when I was just before I turned 7. But, drugs, alcohol, and all that was part of my life from a very early age.
So you think that was kind of like the contributing factors? You said you had an addiction, so do you think, just those lifestyles or just those influences of you growing up and stuff like that and the hard times that you've had contributed to your addiction?
Well, see, I didn't realize it was an addiction until till 2002-ish maybe. But it was a factor of life. Like, my parents did drugs and they shared them with us, so I didn't realize that it was a bad thing.
Oh, wow.
Or that it was a negative thing. Like, I took my first drink of alcohol with my mom at the age of 9.
Really?
And it wasn't like, hey, here's a beer. I was doing tequila slammers with my mom. You know what I mean?
Right.
I tried the original form of methamphetamines for the first time at the age of 11.
Damn.
Within 2 years we moved to Illinois, and I went from that to hanging out with a bunch of hippies and stuff. So there's a lot of hallucinogens and marijuana use. But
right.
Literally, the day my dad came back to Illinois to get their stuff, and me, my wife, and my kids came home, he had meth with him, and I did it. It wasn't even a thought.
Yeah.
And from that point until 2007, including, a prison sentence, I was just off the rails.
Yeah.
It took my wife less than 9 months to leave me, take my kids, and go away.
Right.
So I have a 22 or 23 and 25-year-old that haven't seen me since they were 2 and 4.
Wow. That's pretty rough, man.
And with that, that not realizing it was an addiction, but the drugs and the lifestyle and who I had become in that short period of time prevented me from pursuing my family or a different way of life, because what I was doing wasn't bad enough to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
See, and that's kind of how it was with myself, where I lived a pretty rebellious life myself growing up there in San Diego, and I always knew I had an addictive personality because I would do something and immediately if it gave me some type of pleasure, I just kept on doing it and just kept on doing it until I ended up getting sick with Crohn's disease, and the doctors give me some pain medication, and a year of taking that, and once they stopped that, you know what I mean, I started a habit. I love the way the pills made me feel. I loved all the morphine, the Dilaudid, everything they gave me. It made me feel good. I love that I was able to kind of drown out all the crap that I went through in my life. And you know, that once they stopped giving me those pills and stuff, I started seeking other pleasures like heroin and stuff like that, buying pills on the streets, doctor seeking, all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
And it's a vicious cycle. You know, I almost lost my family as well, man. My wife packed up and left me plenty of times. I mean, like, bro, I leave for work one day and I come home and her and the kids are gone, packed up and everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not a good feeling whatsoever. And you said you had a prison sentence.
So I've had 2 prison sentences. So the first time I caught a couple forgery charges because my wife was like, hey, I need money. My dad won't help me. So, you know, some of the people I were hanging out with were like, hey, go write these checks. We'll pay you. They gave me a bad account. I got caught. You know, I was 21, super naive, and high as fuck, you know. So, so I caught, you know, my first felony, and then, you know, went from that to possession. But, you know, here in Pierce County, unfortunately, like, the judicial system isn't really hard, especially back in the early 2000s. So they're just like, hey, bye, you know, 2 weeks in, whatever. Yeah. Well, by like my 7th one, I got picked up on a stolen car that I was just driving. I knew it was stolen, but I didn't care because I was high.
Yeah.
And some more drugs, and they're like, well, you're gonna do prison. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, I tried to do drug court, and my girlfriend at the time wasn't being very cooperative. She had technically moved on, and I didn't want to realize it because, once again, I was naive and stuck, you know, my girlfriend of like 7 years. And so I opted out of that and went and did my sentence, and I did like 4 months. But the difference with that was like, my boss picked me up from the gate, took me straight to work.
Right.
I made like $120. I went and got a hotel room on South Tacoma Wa and bought some dope.
Right.
Like, literally. You know, I turned a year's probation into 3 years of hell. You know, probation violation after probation violation. Right. And just kept getting loaded.
Right.
Honestly, it wasn't until my son that's sitting in front of us was born, and you know, I was still off the rails, but you know, I had somewhere to live. I had a steady job, so like my life, I was functioning, but I was functioning to get loaded. Right. Like, I didn't have to sell drugs. I went to work, I bought drugs, I did drugs, and I went to work. Yeah. You know.
Oh, so you're one of those functioning addicts.
For the most part, yeah, because like I told my significant other at the time, it's like, look, if you want money, you ask me on payday, I will give you half my check. If you do not ask me, I'm not going to give you shit, and I'm going to go buy a bunch of drugs, because that's just where I'm at. Right. Closed mouths don't get fed. Right. Like, you got like 6 other people living in this house, and you're Section 8. Yeah. But I will gladly give you half my money, because you are my significant other. Yeah. But if you don't ask me, so I never did. Right. You know, and that went on for a while, and then when he was born, CPS stepped in. As soon as they stepped in, I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm good. Like, hook me up with whatever. Yeah. So I found the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. Yeah. And
that's awesome, man.
And well, no, it took me like 18 months to figure it out. Yeah. You know, there was days that, you know, I was on Meth Family Services Drug Court, which is basically, you know, the same thing as what they do for prisoners, but instead of getting your charges dropped, you might get your kids back. You know, and there was many a Sundays I was over at my sister-in-law's house, or my sister-in-law, and sitting there twisting the bubble, going, fuck, I might have to UA tomorrow, and then still hitting the bubble. Right. You know, luckily I never got caught for that. I got caught because I got too drunk one night.
Uh,
you know, and
right.
I went to treatment when my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figured it out. I figured out that, you know, you can't, if you want a different way of life, you can't do it for anyone other than yourself. So if you don't genuinely want that change in your life, it's not
Right.
going to happen.
Right. Absolutely.
You know,
That's kind of how it was for me. You know, I bounced around from treatment to detox and, you know, did Subutex, Suboxone, and back and forth and back and forth. But I tell you, bro, it wasn't until for me, my get right was not only hearing God, you know, like absolutely hearing him and seeing the recklessness of my life, but coming home from a vacation, a friend's wedding, and to have my house completely empty. My wife packed up everything, took the kids. Bro, everybody, my twin daughters were just born at the time. And I was just sitting there just with my thoughts, house empty. And I'm like, damn, like this cannot just be my life. You know what I mean? My wife, she's told me time and time again, she loves me. But my habits and my hang-ups were gonna break my family apart, and I didn't want that, bro. So that's when I really started to taking my recovery serious and started taking, you know, just things that I do, things that I said a little bit more serious. And that was part of the reason why we actually moved out here to Washington, just to get away from all that and to give me a new start here.
yeah.
It didn't work. It took some time, you know, because I got here and, you know, I started drug seeking again, and, you know, I started my pill habit again. But, you know, now it was just to the point of where I was like, you know what? It got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I just got to put my foot down on it and just say enough is enough. You know what I mean? And from what it sounds like, it seems like that's kind of where it was with you, huh?
Yeah, well, so the thing is, you know, the rooms tell you, you know, if you do the work, you'll do the work. So what I have figured out, and, you know, I can't speak for anyone other than myself, is that my dilemma was never the drugs, the women, the fast cars, or anything else. My dilemma is what's between my ears.
Yeah.
You know, my dilemma was my upbringing. You know, I learned more of that more recently. But,
Yeah.
and so without doing the work to figure out what that is and fix it, you're not
Right.
going to change.
Right.
So, you know, 4.5 years in or 5 years in, you know, I was in another relationship for 2 years. Everything was going good. And then, you know, my ex was like, you know, she left me like 2 months before we were supposed to get married. Like, I don't like you. You're an asshole. I got to go. And, you know, I didn't get loaded, but I still didn't do nothing about it. So
Right.
then, of course, you know, being codependent, not realizing it,
Right.
the first girl that's like, ooh, you're cute, I hook up with, and it was a super toxic situation.
Right.
You know, she wasn't clean. She pretended to be, but she wasn't. She was pill seeking and stuff like that. So, and then, you know, being super codependent, you know, obviously I'm an enabler. So, you know, I'll do whatever it needs to make sure you're happy, just as long as, you know,
Right.
I'm getting a little bit of attention out of the deal.
Right.
You know, whether it's, you know, intimate or not, you know. And about, you know, well, so that was in March. So about a year in, you know, motorcycle accident later, something else I will not discuss because my child doesn't know the full truth. And, you know, I'm still clean, lost my grandma, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And one day, you know, I can't find her no more pills. And she's like, I'm just going to start smoking heroin. I'm like, all right, well, let's go. You know,
Hey.
like I'm still going to meetings and stuff, but I'm like, whatever, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, and like 3 days later, I'm sitting in a bathroom with a toilet paper tube smoking heroin on foil.
Man.
You know, and
Right.
and what I know about myself, especially with my last relapse, is that due to not participating and doing the work, I got stagnant, I got comfortable, I got lazy, and I just didn't care. It wasn't that my life was super unmanageable or anything major was going on. It just was like, all right, well, this sounds fun, so screw it, let's do it. And when it wasn't, it wasn't. Well, unfortunately, that, you know, I kicked heroin after a couple of months, just cold turkey. And then
Ooh.
I tried to do a night of fun that turned into 18 months of a living hell for everyone involved, including my child and her children.
Mm-hmm.
That also turned into a 2-year prison sentence. You know, and
So being an addict and having to go to prison, like, what was that life like?
so that was crazy. Like, I land at Walla Walla and I see some people. I mean, and there's a dude walking down the tier with a light bulb full of meth. Like the day I show up, plain as day, just got a light bulb, a lighter, and a straw going, hey, who wants a hit? Give me a soup. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Who wants
Literally.
a soup?
Give me a soup, I got a hit for you, you know? And I'm like, so, you know, the first time I went to prison, I went to camp. It was nothing. You know, second time I went to prison, it was camp, but it was Walla Walla, you know? So people wanted to try and politic, and people wanted to try and be like, hey, you got to do this. Hey, you got to do that.
Mm-hmm. You know, the prison politics, is it heavy up here like it is out there in Cali? Whereas you have your different cars and stuff like that?
Yeah, so depending on the severity, so depending on where you land, like if you're in closed custody and you get off a bus and you ain't got paperwork, you've got like 48 hours or they're just going to check you in. Like there's people getting off the buses in closed custody and getting stabbed.
Right.
Like within an hour. You know,
that paperwork, bro. That paperwork will get somebody's freaking
Washington
tore up.
passed a law to where they don't even transfer you with paperwork because they're trying to protect the sex offenders and the rapists.
So a lot of people probably hoot that shit or something.
Yeah, well, they got to find a way. You know, they can still demand it, but it's not a for sure thing. It's going to go with you.
Right.
Well, luckily, you know, you get receiving. So when you go to Shelton, you're like, hey, I need paperwork because you know you won't even make it out of Shelton. But if you're going to go to a prison like Walla Walla or Column Bay and you ain't got paperwork, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, we even had a guy tell us one time, like, my lawyer told me to flush my paperwork, and we're like, you better not. Well, and then everybody on the tier's like, there's a reason for that. You probably should stay off mainline.
GP.
Yeah. You know, don't come to mainline because if your lawyer told you to flush your paperwork, you got issues. So me and Walla Walla didn't mix because you know, I've never been a religious person or whatever, and anybody that had anything to say to me, like literally I told him, I was like, I only answer to one man in this world. He's 9 years old and about 4 foot tall. And that's my kid. Yeah, that was my kid. You know, I didn't have a God of my understanding. Like I had a spiritual belief, but not a God of my understanding.
Right.
So I think I made it like 9 months at Walla Walla before I left. And then they sent me over to Coyote Ridge, and while I was there, they have a thing there called Celebrate Recovery, and they had a very small...
they had CR at prison?
Yeah. They had a very small outlook for NA. It was only once a week. That was it. So, you know, I signed up for the chapel, and I went and checked it out, and I went in there. You know, I'd called my sponsor. I'm like, hey, I don't know about this. He's like, well, why don't you quit hearing what you want to hear and start hearing what you need to hear?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go in there. I'm like, look, I know I need something. I'm hoping this will give it to me. I'm not going to use the word God or Lord or none of that because I don't believe in none of that crap.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do your steps and I'm going to try to better myself.
Right.
And I went back to my unit. And like a week later, I went back again and I took my step work with me and I used the term God and I used the term Lord just because.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, there was something about that chapel. And this is the funny part. So like everybody knows it, but I was still naive. Like everybody at the chapel basically is a rapist or a pedophile. Because that's the only place they can go where they're safe and they can get out of their units where they're not being mistreated. So like it's full of nothing but rapists and pedophiles. And I walked into a facility full of a bunch of men that believed in something better than themselves and had something to offer me.
Right.
It wasn't I wasn't going in there going, hey, what did you do? Why are you here? You know, what's the circumstance? No, it was like, play me some music, sing me a song. Let's, you know, find some joy. Let's get out of ourselves. Let's get out of this facility. Like, I'm sorry, Coyote Ridge is literally the litter box of the DOC system in Washington State. It is nothing. It is nothing but. It is the biggest facility in Washington State. It is full of. It is all brick gray buildings. It has nothing but pea gravel. Like they have, one of the jobs is rock raking.
Really?
They go out and rake the pea gravel and pull the little bit of weeds out of it. But like they'll put like Seahawks designs and shit in them. Like they put some work into it sometimes. But that's an actual job, rock raking. It looks like a giant fucking litter box. There's no color, no nothing. You know, so finding anything to escape that is good.
Yeah.
So I can't give you a for sure day or what it was. I'm pretty sure it was during a service, but they had this really big like wooden cross that the inmates made that they hung.
Yeah.
That, you know, we would move, but we would put back. And, you know, one day I just walked in and I knelt before it and I said, give me the answer. Like, I don't know.
Right.
And,
awesome,
you know,
man.
as the word says, the veil was lifted. And all of a sudden, you know, all those problems I had with that book went away because I could understand what was in that book.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's awesome, man.
And the best way I can describe it is, you know, we surrender to everything. You know, we surrender to our higher power. We surrender to our kids.
Yeah.
Life on life's terms sucks, whatever. But, you know, truly figuring out how to surrender from yourself.
Right.
That's a bitch.
Yeah.
You know,
Bro, it is.
Like my wife, you know, when she first met me, she's like, look, you're not a piece of shit. You're not a bad dad. You're not, like, yes, I am. Like, you don't know me, lady.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah.
Like, you think, but you don't. And, like, and I proved her wrong. You know, in, like, less than 30 days in prison. Like, she found out some shit and was like, oh, my God, I'm dumb.
Yeah.
You know, but I married this guy, so what do I do? You know, and, you know, with that, like, I'll just go ahead and say now.
You're talking about Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm talking about my wife. Like, we're still together, 5 years strong. Like, it's been complicated the whole time, but, you know, we figured it out, and it's definitely not been pretty.
Right.
But, you know.
Oh, that's still amazing, though. 5 years. Especially nowadays.
Right. Well, 2 of it was inside. And the first year out was really rough. Like, I'll be honest, there's been multiple times I have left the house. Like, I've actually got my own place to live more than once in the last, like, 9 months.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, there's been some growth. There's been some, you know, the Lord put something on her heart the last time we slipped up or separated. Like, the name of this book, like, just popped into her head. She doesn't even know where it came from.
Yeah.
And she looked it up, and this book gave her the answers to so much stuff. And I'll just say that because it's her stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now we read that book together, and it has given us so much growth and so much ability to communicate and look at other things that it's saved our marriage.
Yeah.
Literally,
Wow.
you know? So, and she herself will literally say, like, the only way she can explain it is God, because she had no clue what this term was or even who the author was or anything. And it's based on a recovery situation, but it's a different symptom of life.
Right.
You know? But
that's awesome, man. That's amazing.
You know, the freedom from self was great.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you know, I came home to not knowing what I was coming home to. Like, my kids were 2 years older. They'd only seen me a couple of times in prison, you know, like a handful of times, you know, and I'm this, like, I come home to, like, wanting to be a dad and, like, having some kind of, like, balance or, like.
Right. Now, was that pretty hard to go from prison and then to come home and trying to get into the flow of everything your wife had already started?
It was so.
Essentially?
I mean, essentially, like, my idea of parenting is definitely way different than my wife's.
Right.
So for trying to transition into that part was really rough. But, like, the culture shock or the, like, what the hell just happened after being in for 2 years wasn't there. Like, it was just like, I mean, yeah, my kids were bigger, but there was no, like, you know, the world's different, or, I mean, it was, but it wasn't, there was no, like, freak out or, like, institutionalization. Like, you get, you know, like, some of these people that, you know, do 10 or 15 years and, like, what the fuck's a cell phone? You know, or even what's the internet? You know, what's a smartphone? You know, like, when I went in, they were this bit, you know, none of that happened. So that was really nice. I mean, it was basically like, okay, 2 years of my life just disappeared. Let's right back where we were, just without the alcohol and drugs.
Right.
But my disciplinary and expectations of my children definitely was a burden on our relationship and our family. So that was the part. And then, not doing the work on myself and recognizing that it was mutual, but it was also still me.
Right.
Was an issue. Also, some of the damage that I had done before I went inside was still very prominent in my wife. So, not getting the closure she needed for that,
Right.
or the understanding on why that behavior happened or what was behind that situation, hindered our relationship too. So, the first 2 years were really rough. And, but with that, like,
did you guys learn to communicate a lot better? Or have you guys?
it's been a real slow process.
Yeah.
But so, unfortunately for my children and my wife, like, I got home and the whole world revolved around me. Other than, my son's football, it's like, hey, this is what I want. So this is what we're going to make happen. This is what I want. This is what we're going to make happen. And I didn't recognize that.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even so much that I was the king of my castle. It was like whatever to appease dad because he was gone.
Right.
Like, this is the lifestyle he want, whatever. And I didn't recognize the damage that had done.
Right.
Until, even when it was pointed out, like, you realize, da 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 da. And I'm like, no. Like, completely coming to grips with that. Never really processed my mind properly until more recently, when it's like, okay, like, this is the life you want, but look at the sacrifices your family has given for you. Yeah. Not only the 2 years you were in and the sacrifices your kids and your wife had to make so that she could take care of you.
Right.
And now they're still sacrificing on a daily basis because you're home, you're an asshole. And not only are you an asshole, but they're just trying to do everything to make your life better or what you want because, you're the king of the castle. And I'm sitting back not feeling like the king of the castle because my kids don't listen to me because of the way I speak to them or whatever. And,
right.
And I'm being mistreated for, spoken to different ways because of past experiences that I'm not even acknowledging because I let shit go too easy.
Right.
Like,
right.
Hey, that happened yesterday, like it's today. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. Well, it's not that simple with everybody.
Right.
And due to the severity of certain situations, it's not, 10 years later, that shit still hurts.
Right.
Bro,
I tell you, man, just sitting here listening to your story, Jeremiah, and it kind of, I would say like this, that if you was to put a screen in front of you and you don't see who you are, you don't see your skin color, you don't see anything, all you hear is somebody's story.
Right.
And I bet people that would listen to that would probably be like, oh, that's a black guy. That's definitely a black guy right there. Just, his hard background and this and that. And, then when people see, like, oh man, that's kind of crazy. You're a white guy going through stuff like this. And it's like, it kind of pops the bubble of that to me. And this is my belief. It pops that bubble of the systemic racism or the white privilege thing.
Oh.
Because I have tons of friends, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, with some similar stories to you.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, people, to me, I look at it as like you have people that were born in privilege versus people that weren't born in privilege. You have people that were born around, just the streets, and you have people that were born around the education system or the schools and the good tutoring and all that other stuff, you know what I mean? And so I look at it more in that aspect. And to listen to your story, man, it's really like, it's comforting. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I decided to do this, is because I feel like when I started cutting hair for the homeless, I started to hear other people's stories. And, I talked to a guy. He was close your eyes real quick. he was a real estate attorney. Some similar stories to you, but he ended up getting on his feet, getting kind of maturing a little bit, and he went to college and he became an attorney and all that stuff. Had a bad upbringing, but he didn't let that stop him, and he became successful. Well, he didn't know about. He knew his parents were meth addicts growing up, but he didn't think he had that addiction, and he tried meth for the first time at a party. And within a year, he lost everything. He lost his wife. He lost his kids. They barred him from ever being able to practice law ever again. And now he's homeless, living in an RV, traveling around state to state, trying to find basically the next hit. He was trying to get himself clean, and and he's living on the streets. And I tell you, bro, like, listening to your story, then thinking of his story, I'm like, man, you guys there's so much out there to tell, you know what I mean? And you have the media out there that puts this narrative that, oh, black people are targeted, or black people are the only ones that go through hard times in life. It's like, no, they don't. You have white guys that go through hard times in life as well. You have Hispanics, and it's to me, man, it's what needs to be shown more, people's lives.
Well, I can enlighten on that. So, like, I moved to Illinois when I was like the day before my 13th birthday, and when we were kids, like me and my sister, I got an older sister, and we didn't like struggle for much of anything. Like, our parents, if we wanted it, for the most part, like, we got it. It wasn't like, like, I had a Nintendo, I got the Game Genie, shit like that. Right. It wasn't like we lived the life, but like, Christmases were okay. We always had food on the table, whatever.
Your baby,
right?
Average,
home. Average, middle class, whatever, lower class family. We moved to Illinois, and within like 6 months, like, we looked at our mom and we're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? And my mom genuinely looked at me and goes, well, what do you expect? We don't sell drugs no more. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? She's like, where do you think all that money came from? Your dad sold weed. We sold meth. Like, we had another income. We don't have that extra income.
Quick question. Do you go straight across here?
What do you mean? Like cut the bangs off?
Yeah.
No, like, I want the length. Yeah, I want the length of everything. It's just kind of in that in between. That's why I want to try to fold it back.
Gotcha.
But back to that whole thing, like you were saying about white privilege and anybody, like I love her to death, but I got a 22-year-old daughter that grew up in these rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. Like, my wife thought she was an addict from the age of 14 and just recently figured out she wasn't. Like, that's the only place she could find a home. Yeah. Right? And our daughter, or her daughter, but our daughter, because I love her the same, has been out there since she was 14 years old. Right? And and she's been clean and like supported by these rooms. Wow. And right now, like, she's out there, she's strung out, she's living in a camper, I don't know where, or in a car. Yeah. And like, she genuinely says, like, she wishes she could find a way to not get loaded anymore. Yeah. But she can't. Like, that last relapse I had, like I said, a night of fun turned into 18 months of hell. Like, I spent over a year wishing I didn't have to get loaded to deal with the bullshit I was dealing with. Right. But the person I was with was loaded, and there was kids involved. Right. And I couldn't think of any other way other than to finally get arrested to get away from that situation safely for everyone involved without the police getting involved. Right. And even when the police did get involved, they went away because we were under investigation for everything we were doing. Like, they showed up to my house and she's throwing shit in the bedroom. And the cops are like, dude, I'm like, what? She needs to be medicated. They're like, we know. I'm like, and they just left. Dang. Like, this is a clear-cut domestic violence situation. She flipped the bed. She's throwing milk crates. And she looked at him and said, it's my house. Fuck you. Get out. Damn. We were under investigation. So they just left us. Damn. 4 months later, we finally get arrested. Yeah. And this was in Lakewood. Like, come on. But what I know is that, I have a higher power I choose to call God. And
Absolutely.
And there's been so many times in my life that I can recognize now that he has been there for me, even when I wasn't
100%.
paying attention.
Right.
So like, and like I was saying, like with that book, like I have, in the 3 years that I've been home, I stepped away from where I was at, but I found my place I needed to be. I do my best to stay with him, and he shows me what I need to the best of my ability as much as possible.
Right.
You know, he gives me what I need, and he helps me get through heartaches and and shit like that.
Yeah.
Without going insane or wanting to get loaded, you know.
Yeah.
There's definitely, you know, times I feel him stronger than others, but
Right.
without him, I don't know that I would be where I'm at, you know.
Yeah. Oh, bro. Same here.
You know.
Same here. My wife would have left me for good without God in my life, and
Right. You know?
I would not have gotten clean. Just me as a barber right now, and making the moves I'm making as a barber. None of that would have happened.
Well, and so, I mean, I'll share this part. I know my wife's going to watch this because I'm a maker, but I'll share that part. Like my wife had to point out to me that, like, even when we're together, it's about me. Like, we go to church, we walk into church.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. And I just walk off and go say hi to people and just leave my wife standing there. Like, she's supposed to know what to do. But my wife doesn't.
Right.
Like, she's not in the same place as me, so how is that fair?
Right.
You know, we go to a meeting, and I go my way, she goes her way. Like, not directly involving her in everything in my life that I find important has made the world about me and not about us or not about our family. You know, and being able to have her communicate that to me, like, constructively, and be able to, like, change that has been life-changing.
Bro, that's crazy that you say that, because, you know, that was something that my wife and I, share back for me real quick, something we talked about too, that, you know, you never introduced me to anybody, or every time we go somewhere, you just leave me or you walk off, you know what I mean? And that was something that I had to listen to, like, man, you know what? I'm not trying to do that intentionally, you know what I mean? It's just my personality, and it's just something that I'm really just trying to work on. It's one of my character defects, you know what I mean? And so that's something that she's been really pounding at me about lately, and that's something that I'm really trying to take more to heart and listen to that. And I feel like, you know, it's you know, God gives you that person, you know, that's sort of your better half, so to speak, and that's going to help you with those weaknesses in your life, you know?
So we're addicts through and through, me and you both, all right? And being an addict, we're also self-loathing. We have very minimal self-esteem whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's be real, all right? I'll speak for myself. You want to agree, you can agree. I'm not going to attack you. But, like, we hate ourselves for the most part. We do anything we can to put a mask on or a front or to appease anyone around us. So even being in recovery or having any kind of clean time, it's about that attention, because we've never got positive attention as children or as addicts or whatever.
Right.
Like, I never really got super positive attention. Like, I can't, like, I had to think about this. Like, I don't remember the last time my mom, like, said, wow, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. Bro. Like, I called my mom and told her I was part of the union, and she didn't have nothing to say. You know, like, I'm like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah.
I went to visit my mom when I was in Spokane, and, like, you know, we can touch base on it real quick, but, like, I haven't had hair in 25 years, so I'm the typical stereotypical white guy. Like, I'm bald, I got tattoos, I ride a Harley. Like, I'm that like, oh fuck, don't let him talk to you, you know, run away. You know, but I'm the biggest teddy bear in the world, you know.
Right. Like,
so, like,
well, I remember when our boys were playing football. I remember that was a talk amongst a lot of the parents and stuff like that, and coaches.
About me, because I showed up on my Harley.
He's a Nazi. He hates black people. Connor hates black people because of him. And I'm like, huh? Like, I mean, you could you definitely, if people look, obviously if people look at you and off the rip, they could probably see that, you know, like,
they're gonna. So that's where the stereotyping and judgment and predisposition of the world we live in comes from. It's just like you see a colored man walking down the street and he's sagging his pants a little. Oh, he's a gangster. Da 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 da. You walk up to him and say hi, and he has an intellectual conversation with you, and doesn't, you know, every other word's not the N word or something to that effect or whatever. Like, that's a genuine human being, but you're automatically going to assume something just by his appearance or his skin tone.
Right. And
Same
that's
thing
what
with
we need
me.
to change.
You know,
Absolutely.
I'm a bald white guy with a bunch of tattoos because I think they're beautiful. But I'm a giant teddy bear. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't care who you are. Like you
Right.
treat me with respect, I'll treat you with respect. But if you act ignorant and stupid, I'm just not going to talk to you.
Right.
And anybody can be that way. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I saw more ignorance in the white crowd in prison than I did anyone else.
Right. And that's what needs to change, my friend. All right, check yourself out, big guy. If I need to change anything, please let me know.
I don't think so. So yeah, okay, you did okay, took the tops off a little bit. This side looks way thinner up here for some reason. I don't know why. Is it just me? Because like Chris did that too, I thought. Like it's super thin.
Well, yeah, this side's a little bit lighter than that side.
It's just the color, or
Yeah, it's just a little bit lighter.
okay.
But I mean, I could still.
No, it's fine. I mean,
I
the
bring
tops
it-
grow back quick, so it doesn't matter. It's everything else that doesn't.
Yeah,
grow
I
fast.
just blended the sides a little bit. That's all.
No, you're good. Yeah, let me get around the ears since I don't shave no more. Cool. What's the back look like? Oh, that's what that's for, huh? Yeah. All right.
Good to go, my friend.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, everybody, that's it. This is my boy Jeremiah. It's been a pleasure talking to you, my man, and definitely been a pleasure to have you guys listen to his story. And please stay tuned for more interviews that I'm going to be doing. Please like, share, subscribe. Please, if you guys have any comments or any type of criticism, what I can do better for the next interview that I put out there, please let me know what I can do to make this channel better. Thank you guys all for the love, shares, and all the support and all the good vibes that you guys been giving me. So thank you, and talk to you soon.